this video we're going to learn how to stop criticising ourselves and beating ourselves up. Do you ever feel pain from calling yourself names or telling yourself you can't do something or you're not good enough and you've never been very good and you'll never achieve it and you're sick of trying? Do you ever have thoughts like this? Because I used to have a lot of thoughts like that. And when I noticed just how much I was being harsh and mean to myself, I noticed that I was doing it most of the time about most things. I believe I learned some of it as a way to kind of punish myself, just because the world seemed horrible and everything was some kind of punishment. So just follow the train somehow. I'm sure that was part of how I learnt this. And another part of how I learnt it was I learnt it as some kind of motivational mechanism, as if being hard on myself and constantly prodding myself with a critical finger would actually help me stay focused and progress me. Now I can see how that makes some kind of sense, because you think, well, if I'm really hard on myself and really watch myself and really push myself, like, I'll get somewhere. But what happens instead when you do it in a negative way is that you actually just deplete your resources of energy. You don't feel very good, you feel more ratty, and therefore you have less of a quality of social experience. And as we are one whole organism, social experience is very necessary. So, and on top of all that, you resonate a point of attraction that will bring you more self-criticism, bring you more things to criticise yourself about, and it's a negative loop. So today we're going to learn how to stop the self-criticism and the beating ourselves up. Yay! So I'm going to share with you today my process of how I stopped beating myself up. So how I did this was, first, number one, I noticed when I was beating myself up. And number two, when it's only a two-step process, is in the moment I noticed I was beating myself up, I just stopped where I was. I ceased the self-beating. I ceased all thought. Just for a second. Just for 1 second. And then I did it for another second. And another second. And I just kind of sat staring into space, because my thoughts were like, oh, you're so crap, and it's always the same, and you'll never get anywhere, and things like that was like all the thoughts. And I'm just sitting in my chair like, okay, finding it difficult to make any progress because of all these thoughts. So I just sat there and I just went, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to stop. And then I did not attempt to fill the space with any other thoughts. I didn't try to have a better feeling thought about myself. I didn't try and do anything at all. I simply sat there without the criticism and the self-beating. I just sat without it for that moment. And when it had passed over, the moment of silence, I began about doing things. And every time I heard the little voices beating me up, the practice habit I'd made, like just on its own little loop, I just stopped. No matter what I was doing, I would just cease thought. I could be tidying up, I could be writing, I could be creating art. And whatever I was doing, I would either just stop all activity in that moment and be still, or I would continue the physical activity and simply stop the mental activity. And what happened is that I imprinted a pattern into my system, into my being, into my neural network, that these pathways, these repeated patterns were no longer being travelled. These neural networks of self-beating and self-loathing and self-depreciation, which were taught by a lot of things, the pathways stopped being used in my brain, and the pattern changed. And all I had to do was just stop. Whenever I noticed I was doing it, I was like, okay, I'm not going to stop. And that was all I did. And now I I do not beat myself up now, which is wonderful, you know. Like, that is a lot of energy. That is a huge amount of energy to gain, because whenever you beat yourself up, you're just depleting your energy, and you're basically putting an energetic barrier around yourself, saying, don't come near me, I'm useless. And if you're an entrepreneur or a business person, if you are a light worker, like, if you're anybody, it's really counterproductive. So just stop doing it. You have permission. You can give yourself permission to stop beating yourself up and stop criticising yourself. If you do it out of motivation, you will find that you're much better motivated by being good to yourself and by praising yourself. So how to stop beating yourself up is just consciously cease the process every time it occurs. And first of all, I ceased the very loud voices, and then I noticed there was more subtle voices in there as well, criticising me, that I just had on auto repeat over the years. So just cease them all. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with all of your reprogramming processes, because they do take a little bit of time, and treat your brain and your whole system as a work of art that you are painting, that you are the creator and the owner of. Because when we cease patterns like that, just cease them, the neural networks that the energy fires down to recreate the experience and the thoughts and the emotions in your body that are on kind of autopilot, such as self-criticism, when you just cease using those pathways, just stop them in their action. No, not listening, stop. What happens is those pathways crumble and they're gone. You can unleash, my intuition says, at least 70% of your own energy force by simply ceasing to criticise yourself. And of course this means ceasing the criticism of others as well, because when you criticise someone else, you're actually criticising yourself. Because we are one. So thank you. I love you. Be blessed. And I wish for you to never criticise yourself or anyone else again, because we are so magic and so beautiful and so powerful, so unique, so necessary to all that is, and that is why we are. I love you. Be blessed. Namaste.